Let's continue playing with the 6 lines. Last week we talked about the brand, and this week we're going to talk about the 6 lines in the sphere of vocation. And if you know the gene keys, you'll know that the sphere of vocation is the same as the sphere of your core, which is the final sphere in the Venus sequence. And the goal with your vocation is to use your deepest source of suffering. Remember, that core wound is deep, deep within you in our unconscious, and you're born into it in this world. But once we transform that, it becomes our unique gift that we can offer into service. We use our suffering as fuel to serve the whole. And who knows better how to do that than the one who has alchemized it? Now, when you listen to these 6 lines, you'll only understand if you think or consider them as a unit. One thing that the Pearl teaches us is that humans are interconnected, that we're designed to work together. And so you can't just take your line and contemplate it. You have to think about how it fits into the whole. Because the Pearl is about Synarchy, which is just this self-organizing principle of the universe. Science would have you believe in entropy. Gene Keys believes in syntropy, the opposite. At some level, the universe is marching towards wholeness, not falling apart. We can't prosper in isolation. As much as my first line vocation and my first line culture sometimes would like me to believe. So right into it, let's talk about line 1. And what you'll see here is the keynote. So in this case, production, and that is stolen from the corporate world. And then in parentheses, something from the entertainment industry. And the goal there is to just give you something that maybe makes a light bulb go off in a slightly different way. So the first line is how new impulses, ideas, and structures enter the world. And if you don't have a first line, it doesn't mean that you're not creative by any stretch, but some people are meant to create from the void, to make something from nothing. And that's what the first line is here to do. Whereas other people are creative with ideas that already exist. They're playing with things that are already in the world. The first line is a channel for this creative evolutionary impulse that continues to come in the world and further our growth and further our evolution. And it's really hard to break truly new ground. It requires dedication, focus, alone time, overcoming self-doubt. It's not an easy process. If you've ever tried to sit down and write something from nothing, man, staring at that blinking cursor can be one of the hardest things in the world to do. It's one thing to have an idea, and it's another thing to bring that idea into the world. And that is the role of the first line. Genius is about implementation, not about thought. That's the difference between Mozart and somebody who wants to write music. He was able to translate it into being. To write a great script, you have to throw yourself into the work entirely. And first lines are transmission holders. They have a responsibility to make new things, to allow the creative impulse to overtake them, to come into their life, because those new things will serve the whole if that person's frequency is where it, I almost said should be, and that's not the right language, but ultimately everything is furthering our growth and development. One of the hardest parts for the first line is after its role of creation, you have to let go. You have to get your ego out of the way, and you have to allow other people to interact with that idea, to bring that creation into the world. That's not your job as a first line. You have to surrender. You have to let the idea go. You can't care about how it's reshaped or used in the world. That's not for you to worry about. Your job is just to write the script and get the heck out of the way. It's up to the rest of the Synarchy to market, to organize, strategize, sell. And to me, that was such a huge relief. And one of the big issues, the big problems that I had when I built my first business is that I learned all of these skills and I'm relatively good at them, especially like sales, which has a direct resonance with the first line. And so I tried to do it all. And very quickly that led to burnout. But what a relief when we realize that we don't have to do it all. Moving on now to the second line, which is marketing or the agent. Remember, line twos are passionate. They are relationship based. They're brilliant, provocative, fluid, responsive. Remember, this is the dancer. And what could make a better marketer than that? Second lines build a web of one-to-one relationships. Remember, the second line in Radiance is keynoted marriage. And so those one-to-one relationships are how things are spread. It can pick and choose people to identify with, people that are going to help spread the vision. Also, a lot of times line twos are going to match up with line ones. They're going to be brought together so that they can see this new idea and usher it out into the world. Line ones have to work really hard to bring things into creation. Line twos flow. And one thing with all of these keynotes, marketing here is not literal. Twos simply guide information out into the world. They ensure that the right people see the right idea. And a lot of times this relationship is, like I said, can be like a creator and muse relationship where they're a line one creator and line two is the muse, and also understands who the audience is for that thing. And so they can help line ones temper and sort of guide them in a direction, which certainly makes it easier for ones to create. Twos also temper the rawness of the first lines, which can get kind of ornery and not care so much because they're so inside of themselves, saying that as a first line. Important for twos to know it doesn't need to be a literal relationship. So this could be an idea or a person from the past. It's not something that you need to actually engage with in real time. It's just something that needs to feel resonant with you. Line twos are the dancer looking for the right dance. It's about working creatively in union with other people. They are a karmic connector. They get the right ideas to the right people. And for a second line, there is nothing better than finding some obscure idea out there in Never Never Land and bringing it into the world. Line three now is strategy or the producer. And line threes honestly have probably the highest potential for success in business. And that doesn't necessarily mean money, but it means growing something. It means making something actually take hold. The problem that third lines can have is they tend to have addictive tendencies, addictive behavior. And so they can become obsessed with the idea of generating wealth and obsessed with working. They become a workaholic. Enough is never enough for a third line, for all of us, but especially for a third line. If you look at somebody that has millions or even billions of dollars and yet still all they want is to make more money, that's a very third line thing. What we need to remember though is that wealth is not prosperity. Prosperity is flow. Wealth is accumulation. Prosperity is balance between spiritual life, work life, relationships, whereas wealth tends to focus itself only in business, only on money. Third lines are the Robin Hoods. They are here to make all the money and then give it all away to the people that need it because it's natural for them to want to help. Remember, third lines are the line of experience, and they have had experiences go wrong, and they have been at the bottom, and they know what it feels like to need help. And so they're more readily able to offer and give help to other people in whatever form that takes. Line three is great at strategy. Their job is to assess, plan, and implement in alignment with flow. And that's the most important part. They're able to see what the world wants, what it's asking for. And because they know that, they're able to put together a plan and help everyone else walk towards that future. They're here to streamline, to create efficiency through letting go of the things that no longer serve. So a lot of times in business, we're holding on to things, holding on to old ideas or old ways of doing things because that's how we've always done it. And third lines recognize that's the beginning of the end, and they're able to cut off things. Remember, the changer is another keynote for the third line. So they're able to let go and move on and really make sure that we're all headed in the right direction. Third lines need to move among the people so that they can feel into the vibe. They can feel into the needs. Like I just said, they need that to put together their plan. They thrive in a group oftentimes. They thrive around people. They'll thrive in an urban environment a lot of times. Third lines are the ones that are taking on responsibility for a project, not in the form of management, right? They're not up here, they are in the weeds, but they are the ones ultimately that are responsible where the rubber meets the road. They are the backbone of any project. It's probably the most complex and hardest of the lines, hardest working. And because of that, it leads to the greatest recognition and along with that, the greatest reward. And that's what allows them to be Robin Hood. Line 4 now is sales or the director. So fourth lines are the great friend makers of the world. They are so genuine and real, and they have this easy warmth to them. And because of that, they're always selling their heart. They're always selling this deep sense of ease, this deep feeling of love. And that then allows the product to just sort of sneak in, almost unrecognized. Because if I can connect with you on a deep level, it doesn't really matter what I'm selling, you're gonna want it. Remember, it's not about the words, it's not about the product, it's about the energy. Fourth lines are able to create openness. They're able to help others overcome their fear. They're able to start a conversation, to really dig in on why people might not want to do a certain thing and model or show that this other person's heart has the capacity to open wide enough to handle whatever is coming their way. Oh, and there might be this product, this thing, this service that could help with it. Fourth lines model open-hearted communication. And they have to work closely with people because that's how they understand. That's how they help others understand what they're working towards. Fourth lines have a tendency to diffuse difficulty, to help the other person see another way. And because of that, they're able to overcome objections. That's one of the big things in sales. Like I said, I owned a business previously. And one of the things you learn in sales training is how to overcome people's objections, because there are these common things that come up time and again. I don't have time, I don't have money, my spouse isn't gonna like this. And there are ways to connect with people to show them that that is just their story. And the fourth line is very resonant with the first line in that they've gone within deeply and they know how to remain committed to their ideal. So when this other person's objection comes up or this other person way of thinking, it would be just as easy for that person to influence the fourth line. But the fourth line is true to themselves. They know their values, and because of that, it comes across and they're able to win people over to their side. Fourth lines are here to influence humanity, to open humanity's hearts. Ultimately, fourth lines sell because it's an excuse to share their spirit with the world. They're great at convincing people when they're in alignment, because what you're convincing them of is that they have a higher purpose and you have a higher purpose. And when both of those higher purposes are aligned and working together, of course it makes sense for the other person to take action, for them to engage with the product. Fifth line is management or the promoter. So you can see now, or hopefully start to see, that how all of us humans are designed to work together. We cannot do all of these things alone. Unfortunately, the people at the top are often focused on wealth and forget that it's about helping. And that is our current issue with management in this world. That's because we're stuck as a collective in this shadow frequency. But a fifth line at a higher frequency always asks the question, why? Why are we doing this? And the answer is not to make money. And if it is, that is unsustainable and it will come crashing down sooner than later. They always ask, who? Who are we here to serve? And if it's yourself before the whole, that will be unsustainable growth and it will come crashing down. So again, in my business, I put myself before the whole. I put my business before the whole. And I built $1 million business really, really quickly. And very, very quickly, it came crashing down. And it was because of that. Because I didn't see the bigger picture. So that's a lesson that I've learned. Fifth lines have a heavy burden as a leader because they are responsible for ushering us into this new way of being, this new way of seeing the world. And it's not their job to come up with the vision. That's the sixth line's job. But it is their line to implement that vision, to give guidance towards that vision. And that is a hard and heavy burden. What they're constantly asking themselves is, what is the most that we can do for humanity? The internet was made for fifth lines because you can gain so much influence so very quickly and usher in so much change. Commerce can become sacred. It can become a means of serving ourselves and a means of serving the world, a means of raising the frequency and the vibration that everyone is on. Why? Why do we think that spirituality needs to be this separate thing? Of course it applies to business. Of course businesses are going to grow if you care about your customer more than you care about your profit. The profit will take care of itself. And I wish I learned that lesson. I wish I learned that lesson before my business closed. Fifth lines have to find a balance because if they're too heavy-handed, you choke out growth. But if you're too light with your guidance, there's no direction and everyone's running around with a different picture in their brain. Nobody's walking towards the same ideal, the same vision. So fifth lines need to have this deep vision, this deep understanding of where people are headed, where an organization is headed, and give just enough guidance, just enough of a touch, just enough of a guardrail to get people going in that direction. And then it needs to get out of the way and let each of these other lines do what they're here to do. Line 6 is philanthropy, or the investor. And sixes are here to bring an ideal that doesn't exist yet into the world. And that can feel lonely. They can look around and think, what are you doing? What are we doing at a higher frequency? Why can't you see that we're causing so much damage? Why can't you see that we should be doing things a different way? Why can't you see that your gain is causing someone else's loss and it doesn't have to be that way? Today, philanthropy is seen as a luxury for wealthy people, but that is not what philanthropy is. There are plenty of ways to give and direct energy in a way that can open and serve the whole. Philanthropy is just an investment of money or energy or time into a place where it can do the most good. And it's different from charity. Third lines might be the most charitable, right? So if you walk by a homeless person on the street and give them $1,000, that's charity. A sixth line might walk right by somebody on the street and not give them anything, but it will bother them so deeply that they will go home and work for hours, endlessly, on how to help the problem of homelessness. That is philanthropy. The sixth line wants to solve the problem as a whole, not just help one specific person or group of people. Their job is to hold the vision of where we're headed, to help people to see that there is another way, that we need to continue to evolve and not get stuck where we are right now. Their role is to take the money that was made and to plow it back into the earth where it serves the most good, the most people that hold the highest values. And it's not about wealth here. It's about the greatest good. It's about how can my time, how can my energy, how can my money be directed in a way that actually solves problems for good. The hard part for Six Lines is that it doesn't get to be involved. It doesn't get to influence the outcomes. It doesn't even get to influence the implementation. It only chooses who and what to invest in. And then its job is done. So those are the 6 lines of vocation. Over the coming weeks, we're going over the 6 lines of all the different spheres. I'm going to do the Pearl sequence spheres first, and I'm not sure where I'll go from there. I'll listen to my gut. Whatever feels good, that's where we'll head. So if you want more information on the 6 lines, stick around the channel. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I always do my best to answer. Thank you guys for being here with me.